does think Scott Perry is playing the game. And with all these draft lottery rumors, of course, we reported back in March that the Kings love Darius Acuff Jr. That has picked up a lot of momentum. I floated out there during the draft combine that I had heard that Darius Acuff Jr.'s camp is very interested in the Sacramento Kings as well. There's mutual interest between the two that could play a part in Acuff falling to 7. But Carmichael Dave, also yesterday or 2 days ago, I reported that the Kings Scott Perry met with Kingston Fleming's family in San Antonio over the weekend. And then Brett Siegel from Clutch Points was on yesterday with Whitey Gleason and Alan Stiles, and Siegel shared that Clutch Points had reported that many teams around the league believe that Kingston Fleming's is number 2 on the Kings board behind Darius Acuff Jr. Well, Carmichael Dave this morning shared that he had a conversation with a source that is not related at all to the Sacramento Kings, not in the Kings front office, but a source that he says is never wrong, that mentioned there's a buzz around the league that the Sacramento Kings are ready and prepared or willing to trade up to go and get Darius Acuff Jr. Didn't talk about specifically who they'd trade with. We all assume it's the Clippers at 5, but maybe it's the Brooklyn Nets at 6 if it comes down to it. Before we get into Kings fans' reactions, because we talked about this before, Jason Ross then followed it up with, well, okay, if they're going to trade up, I want them to shoot higher. If you're going to trade up, why not trade up into the top 4? It's going to cost you some sort of asset no matter what to move up. We assume it would be some sort of protected first-round pick more than likely if the Kings want to move up to 6 or 5 to get Darius Acuff Jr. and decide whether or not that's worth it. But if you're talking about calling Chicago or calling Memphis and saying we want to move into the top 4, now you're talking about Scott Perry is probably having to ransom the future to go and make this happen. By the way, the Kings cannot trade Keegan Murray because of his contract. The Kings cannot trade Keegan Murray on draft night. So it's not like they can use Keegan on draft night to move up to like 3 or 4 as well.
Yeah.
So are you okay with the Kings using a smaller asset to move up a couple spots, or you want them to go big and try and move up into the top 4?
Yeah, I think it's even when you say move up to the top 4, I mean, that's going to take a lot for one of those teams to budge, because those players up at the top 4 are not really, they might move within the top 4, but they're not really moving out of the top 4. And so
we'd be surprised if that would happen.
It's just like when you are looking at the top 4, it's like, again, those teams are very lucky to be where they are. I just don't see in this type of draft with all the teams that we can argue will need one of these 4 players, whether it be Boozer, Peterson, AJ DeBonce, or Caleb Wilson, that would be like, oh yeah, like we'll trade down. Even if it was for a ton of picks in the future, again, with the lottery being what it is moving forward, like it's also different in terms of how they're looking at picks. So I don't understand, like, if you're just moving up 2 spots, then why don't you move? I don't really think that that's reality. I think the only reason why it's reality is because there are some different moves that the Clippers and the Brooklyn Nets could possibly make that would allow them to trade down maybe and wait for that player.
The Kings do have the assets to make a like, you can't refuse this deal. Like, they could throw 3, 4+ first-round picks, which they'll never do.
They're just not in.
But they can technically do this.
I don't think they're in the state of building like that.
Unless they really think AJ DeBonce, well, he wouldn't be at 3 or 4, or like Caleb Wilson is that guy, or Cam Boozer's that guy. But the problem with moving into the top 4, and why I don't think it's realistic really, is because 3 out of the top 4 desperately need a star. They do. Like the Wizards desperately need a star. I know they have Trae Young now. They have Anthony Davis. They need a star.
Right.
Bulls need a star. They have Josh Giddey, but they're resetting. The Bulls need a star. Grizzlies, need a star. They just traded Jaren Jackson Jr. away. I know they still have John Morant, but they're ready to move on from him. They need a new face of their franchise. All three of those teams need very similar to what the Sacramento Kings need.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fourth one in the Utah Jazz blatantly tanked to get there because they have their eye on one guy in particular, which is AJ. But I think they're more than happy taking Darren Peterson if AJ goes number one.
And that's the thing that I mentioned. All those teams, they want one of these players. Like, they are all really lucky to be in that spot, and I'm sure acknowledge the fact that this is a really rare draft to have that many gems like at the top. Mm-hmm. So I just don't, if anything, I don't think one of those teams would be really willing to in the top four at least.
So then there's moving up to 5 or 6 to, again, we assume the Kings would move up because they want Acuff. We assume. A lot of people don't believe Acuff is going to be there at 7. I've heard Allen Styles especially talk about this, and I get the point. Optically, it doesn't look great for the Sacramento Kings, who fell to 7, fell out of the top 5, where in theory they need to move up into in order to get Acuff. It does not look good optics-wise for them to have to do that to go and get their guy after they chose to prioritize winning over draft lottery odds, which put them in a better, gave them a higher percentage to fall the way that they did. So it's like you just hurt yourself. I understand the optics of that completely. My question is, does it matter? If the Kings feel that Acuff is their guy, and they were hoping to end up with a top 5 pick to get him, but they didn't. They had the 5th best odds, but the way the lottery works, you actually only had 3% chance or something very low to end up at the 5th pick. It's just the way it works. They fell to 7. Okay. Does it matter if they truly feel like Acuff is their guy? And don't get me wrong, they would have to be right. If you're using an asset to trade up, you better be right, or that's a potentially fireable offense. But optically, if you still end up with your guy and the route you took to get there wasn't perfect and wasn't linear, but you still ultimately got the guy that you wanted to, will we even give a damn if Acuff or whoever they moved up to go and get ends up being the player that they're hoping he would be? No one will care. I think it's just optics more than anything else.
To be honest with you, Matt, I don't really care right now. I'm kind of focused on living in the future of what the Kings are trying to do. And we can go back all we want and reminisce about how they didn't tank to get a better position. But again, that's not ever guaranteed either. So I think for me right now, I don't really care what happened in the past and what they could have, should have, whatever done. This is where they're at now, and they have to figure out what is best for them in this moment. While it might irk some people to know that they have to trade up to get possibly Darius Acuff, if that is what they feel they have to do, because he is, after all this other stuff that they do with other players and interviews and going and visiting Kingston Fleming's at his home in San Antonio, and they still don't feel like those players are comparable to Acuff, and you need to go and get him, then you go and get him. And again, we'll figure out the rest later. If he's a bust, then it's going to be a big problem for this organization and Scott Perry moving forward. But that's what we have to, we talk about trust, and we continue to talk about, we got to trust Perry. Well, this is part of the process too. So if they trade up to get him, it's because they have done their due diligence on all these other guards and still thought Acuff was the best option. And maybe they don't. Maybe they see one of these guards after they visit with them and they see him on their list rise. And maybe they feel comfortable then just sticking and picking at 7.
Yeah, of course, the asset that they would, in theory, give up in this trade and what that asset turns into down the road plays a major part in this conversation. But I'm going to put on my purple-tinted glasses here for a second, and I acknowledge this. If y'all have been listening to this show over the last handful of months, you'll know how much I was more on the side of pro-tanking and losing games to secure better draft lottery odds. Now we're in this position. Okay, it's over. The conversation's over and done with. The Kings ended up at 7. Some people have gotten their frustrations out of the way. Others haven't. That's fine. I'm going to put on my purple-tinted glasses for a second. There is no reason, or it's definitely not guaranteed, that if the Kings were to trade up or have to trade up to go and get Acuff because they prioritized winning and the development over these young guys, there's no guarantee that that won't still benefit the young guys more than had they not had to move up to go get Darius Acuff. I don't know if that makes sense. The way I'm trying to communicate it is basically they prioritize the players that were on their roster and developing them right now. That still has the potential to pay off more than we realize. We don't know how that's going to work out yet. It's worked out in Maxime Reynaud being all rookie second team, so that's cool. But we could still see benefits from that from the guys that are currently on this roster that we're not seeing right now because it still has to play out a little bit more. So it might end up being worth it to the Kings in the grand scheme of things to have prioritized their development, therefore falling to 7, but using an asset to trade it up to 5. They get Darius Acuff, add them to that core that they prioritize developing, and that turns into the future Kings playoff team that we're all hoping for. It's purple-tinted glasses. I understand completely, but it doesn't mean it can't be true. That could be what they're thinking. I don't know if that works, and that might be met with rolled eyes from Kings fans, but that is a potential scenario that could happen.
The only other thing that is, I'm a little confused about this, is why is all of this information about wanting to trade up for Acuff and we would trade up for Acuff and we're zeroed in? How does that benefit the Kings?
It doesn't.
Because I would think that makes it more difficult to, get the Clippers to do a better trade in terms of not giving up as much. Because now you're putting it out there that,
they're not.
You want to give out, well, right. Well, where did Dave hear this from?
Not from a Kings source.
This was from another.
Everything.
Okay.
I've been very transparent with y'all. Everything outside of March that I've talked about with Darius Acuff, none of that has come from the Kings.
So Dave's is from a source outside of the Kings.
He said it's not in the Kings front office, but someone that has not been wrong. That's what Dave said.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm a little bit curious on, this is not necessarily helping the Kings because now I feel like the Clippers, more likely, to do a trade are going to be like, oh, well, we've heard, hands down, you're freaking all in on Acuff for bust. Like, we want all this from you. Like, I don't think it helps by any means, doing a trade that's not going to have to give up a lot more than maybe if you didn't know how interested you were.
The other part of that, though, is why is that any more true than, well, the Kings might want Kingston Flemings, and they're putting this out there so that the Clippers go, okay, then we're going to take Acuff at 5. Great.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe this is all a smokescreen.
I personally don't buy that. I genuinely believe that the Kings want Darius Acuff Jr. or are very high on Darius Acuff Jr. I reported about the thing that I reported about Kingston Flemings because I think the Kings naturally are going to do their homework on other players because they have to. It's the right thing to do. And that doesn't mean that, if we don't get Darius Acuff and are forced to take Kingston Flemings, that's a bad thing. No, they could be very excited about Kingston Flemings too and feel like, well, no matter what, we're walking out with one of these two guys and we feel really good about it, assuming Keaton Wagler goes to the Clippers at 5 or something crazy doesn't happen in that sense. But, not all information that is being shared on the Sacramento airwaves is coming out of Sacramento, right? We're getting information, having conversations with different people. Like Dave has, obviously, the conversation that he had with this person that he shared today. I shared information that I got from people that I trust out of the NBA Combine, the Draft Combine. Shared the information about Kingston Flemings from a source that I very much trust. Shared the information about the Kings loving Darius Acuff back in March from a source that I very much trust. The Kings can't control everything that gets out there, including the stuff that gets out there in their own market. But typically when you hear this amount of buzz around a player to the extent that we've heard about Darius Acuff Jr., it's either the Kings are very much putting it out there, which I don't believe they're doing, or it's true, they're very interested and people outside of the organization have caught wind of this and are sharing this.
Yeah.
Which could be exactly what's happening. I don't think it helps the Kings by any means.
Right. Can I also ask this, and maybe this is something we look a little bit more into when we have an opportunity, but I am curious is what is going on with the names that are being connected to Brooklyn, firsthand, and LA firsthand? Are we hearing out of those camps in that media? And I know there are two large medias, and so they have bigger fish to fry right now. But I am curious, like, is there links like this that are happening in those two cities as well, or those two organizations?
Both have been connected to Acuff. We've seen that. Both are interested in Acuff. I don't remember if there's been any connection with Michael Brown Jr. I don't remember.
He's not been connected to a lot of places.
Keaton Wagler's definitely been connected to L.A. and has been for a while.
And Kingston's kind of just a floater. Like, I don't see him. Like, I don't see one of these teams, like, drooling over him or saying,
I think the Kings can feel pretty confident that Kingston Flemings is going to be there at 7.
Yeah.
But that might not be their number one guy on their board. But that could be why they're interested in, or why Scott Perry had this meeting, is because if Flemings is there at 7 and that's plan B, then they're fine with it. I think the Kings would be very okay, very happy taking Kingston Flemings. I think they would be. That doesn't mean that Darius Acuff Jr. is not still the first choice. And on the other hand, too, you don't want Kingston Flemings to know that he wasn't the first choice, which the Kings are never going to handle it that way.
No.
Kings are never going to handle it that way. The preferences are a thing, but that doesn't mean you have, like, if there was such a significant gap between Darius Acuff Jr. and Kingston Flemings, you'll either, 1, move up for Darius Acuff to make sure you get him, or 2, you'll just move down. Because at that point, well, we didn't get the guy that we wanted, might as well recoup assets. And I don't think the Kings are going to do that. I mean, all signs point to, and there's still 2 weeks until the draft, or a little more than that, but all signs point to they want Acuff. Flemings is not a bad backup plan. And they're going to be checking in, and I'm sure they've already been checking in on Michael Brown Jr. and Braden Burries and Keaton Wagler, and hell, maybe even Nate Ament. I don't know. Ade Mara. I don't know. They're doing their job for all these guys that they could potentially take.
It's just the consistent name that is always, like, in reports or from sources is definitely Acuff.
Yes.
Like, that's the one that it's hard to get past, that they truly don't really want him here.
Well, it's getting to the point that it's almost annoying.
Or really want him here, sorry.
It's almost annoying. And I've seen fans get annoyed by it because someone else recently put out there, oh, the Kings are interested in Acuff. It's like, yeah, no duh, bro. Like, no duh.
There's some
known
piggybacking happening.
Well, of course. And just remember who brought it first to you.
Yeah.
But, like, all of this smoke, it's a lot of smoke. And you can't just make up smoke without fire. I think there is very much fire to the Kings want Darius Acuff Jr. But that does not mean that it's Acuff or bust.
Or bust, yeah. Or they'll do anything to go get him.
The Kings are going to explore what moving up to 5 or 6 to get Acuff will look like. The Kings are going to try to figure out if they even have to do that to get Acuff. And then the Kings are going to look at options that they have if achieving or getting Acuff for a reasonable price is not available to them. Mm-hmm. That's all that this is. That's all that's happening. But all the connections of Acuff to the Sacramento Kings are not coincidental. And to your original question, I do not think all this information out there about the Kings being interested in trading up helps the Kings in any kind of way to trade up for him. But that also doesn't mean that because this is out there, that the LA Clippers can now suddenly go, give us 2 first-round picks or else. Then Scott Perry's going to go, fine, F you, I'll take Kingston Flemings at 7. Like, it's a game, but it's not a game of extremes. And I think people take it to a level of, man, the Kings are going to be held ransom by these two teams. Fine. You can find 7 different breakdowns of Darius Acuff as a prospect, and all these different breakdowns will nitpick different things about him. Darius Acuff Jr. is not some end-all, be-all, guaranteed number 1 overall pick to where the idea of not getting him is devastating to the Sacramento Kings. And if that is, then they'll really move up to go and get him. But that would be short-sighted and silly. Mm-hmm. Like, Acuff's a really, really, really good player. There's obvious connections between him and the Kings. There's obvious reasons to like him for the Kings. And there's reasons to be concerned, and you can say that same thing for every single one of these guards.
Yeah, I mean, me even being like the person who's loved Acuff from the jump, I would still be okay with getting Kingston Flemings in that 7 spot. I mean, I don't think Keaton Wagler's going to be there. He's not necessarily the exact fit I see here right now. But again, it wouldn't be like a complete utter disappointment.
No.
But there is something telling me that the fit in terms of Acuff, the mentality he brings, I just feel like with what this organization needs right now, moving forward, like I do truly feel like he is the best fit still. But I know that it's not a perfect world we live in. We can't just get everything we want all the time, although we would like to. So I'm okay with like Kingston if he gets to that 7 spot and Acuff is already gone.
But going back to fans not being happy if they trade up, in an alternate universe, if I were to, hey, this is Matt George coming back from the future. The Sacramento Kings did not decide to use a first-round pick, a protected first-round pick to trade up for Acuff, and he went on to be a star with the Los Angeles Clippers. Well, good thing we kept that first-round pick. If you got to make moves, you got to make moves.
And that's what makes, dude, Perry's job is so difficult.
Yeah, welcome to the league.
Woo-wee.
Yep, if you feel strongly about Acuff, go out and get him within reason. If not,
got to go with the gut on that one.
Take plan B, which sounds like it's Kingston Fleming's. We'll take the break. When we come back, while Perry's trying to figure out how to navigate all these rumors in the NBA draft, the San Francisco 49ers trying to figure out how they counter or respond to division rival the LA Rams landing the best defensive player in football, Myles Garrett. What options do they have? We'll bring up a few. Kayla's got some breakdowns of them. Kyle came up with some names as well. We'll do that when we come